All right. So thank you everyone for joining so far. I see folks are still trickling in. So today we're going to kick off the energy data insights in AWS for OSDU data platform enablement sessions, which we're trying to organize quarterly, and we have a plan for that, which I'll cover later. So let me briefly introduce myself. I'm Yuri Gubanov. I'm a senior partner solution architect for AWS, primarily working in energy and utilities customers and OSDU data platform. And my co-host today will be Sustin Irvin. Sustin, would you mind doing a quick introduction?
I must first come off mute. But yes, Sustin Irvin, I've been with AWS for the past 3 years, 100% focused on OSDU, 20 years in the industry, primarily from everything from field operations to engineering and business development. Uh, I currently reside as the business development lead for our global data platforms for customers in Americas.
All right. Thank you, Sustin. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the presentation mode. So, Sustin, if you can admit the folks who are still dialing in, and we are going to go ahead and jump into the agenda for today. So, go ahead and start with a little bit of an intro of what the session is going to be about and what are we doing. So at the OSDU face-to-face last year in November in Houston, we announced that AWS have released Energy Data Insights on AWS for OSDU data platform. So what we wanted to do is basically get the community of OSDU data platform developers, customers, partners together on a quarterly basis and talk about what AWS is doing in this space. We're going to hold the session in so far it's planned about a quarterly basis, and this is our first one. So we're going to give you an overview. What did we announce last year? What is Energy Data Insights on AWS? How can it help to make you accelerate your OSDU data platform journey? What features are we offering, and so on. So the first session is going to be divided in basically three big parts. One is I'll turn it over to Sustin right after I finish the introduction to talk about what is the Energy Data Insights offering and how can you use it and what the benefits are. Then we're going to go ahead and jump into the live demo. I'll share my screen and I'll go over how Energy Data Insights in AWS looks like, what are the main features, and cover a majority of the functionality we have. Not everything, given the time constraints, but I'll try to cover as much as I can, using the kind of live screen sharing and live demo. And we'll conclude by talking about the opportunities for the next sessions for customers and partners, and how can you leverage Energy Data Insights on AWS, who you can contact, and so on and so forth. So, Sustin, with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for the overview session.
Perfect. So first of all, I would say, want to make this conversational, but to kind of make sure we're cognizant of time. If you have a question and you don't want to forget it, you can put it in the chat box and we'll review them at the end. But I want to give a high-level overview, as Yuri mentioned, of Energy Data Insights for AWS's OSDU. But let me first kind of start off for those that may not 100% be aware of what OSDU is and what that challenge is. And when we say that challenge, when you look at operators life cycle from acquisition all the way into production, there are various groups that have everything from workflows, applications that sometimes have proprietary data types that are really creating these data silos. And as you have these data silos, it becomes very challenging. Everyone's looking for data, and that is the challenge that the industry has. Not one operator, but all operators have this challenge. And they're creating their different, unique, customized workflows to solve them. But ultimately, the goal is, your next slide. Next slide, Jerry.
Yeah, got it.
Ultimately, the goal is to have OSDU, an underlying platform that allows all of your data to be in one platform. And as you go through different parts of the life cycle and different groups, their data is searchable, viewable, and shareable through one platform. Energy Data Insights is that platform developed by AWS with its underlying services from S3 to EC2. Now, as you look at how these data interacts with the different applications and workflows, it's done through APIs. And the solid lines basically show the evolvement of OSDU over the years, where these data types such as seismic and also wells data have for majority of the time have been done, but they're continuing to develop these standards for future data types such as your real-time operations and working on production moving forward. Why do we want to do this? Everyone, as I mentioned before, have their current workflows in which they're creating value for their end customers. But to have all your data in one location and to be a data-centric company, it allows you to remove the time that you're searching for this data so that you can start making these decisions faster. But ultimately, in that value proposition, the goal is to not only make it faster decisions, but also better decisions because you're more informed across the board around all data that's available inside of your organization. Next slide. Next slide. So energy data insights, and you're going to hear it probably more said as EDI. Ultimately, goal is to be able to share more data. And when we say share more data, this is something that we have a philosophy to be able to do this anywhere, meaning on-prem or in the cloud. So customers that have data residency issues, EDI solves that problem. We want to make sure we're implementing Gen AI. You know, ADI becomes an accelerator for companies to have their data so that they can implement Gen AI solutions and so that they can make these better decisions. You know, making also these decisions faster. That's ultimately the goal of EDI. It is an enabler for customers to move forward in creating that value to their actual end users in the organization. Next slide. What are our ultimate goals? We want to optimize this, and in order to really truly optimize, EDI, we wanted to make sure that we are streamlining the access of OSDU. And to be able to do, once you're streamlining the access, then you also have to, accelerate that adoption of OSDU. And there's been many of different things that have been blockers and roadblocks of accelerating that adoption. And we're going to talk through some of those things. And I would say you have to constantly look at how you're going to continue to improve EDI and the experience for your customers throughout this process. And who do you call when you have a problem? Everything that we want to be able to do is going to have problems at times, but you want to know who do you call? So having that support for the platform is critical. Next slide. Throughout the past 6 years, we've implemented multiple POCs, use cases with various customers, and we've seen major things that have been blockers. The first one is having a managed platform. The second one is how am I going to get data inside the platform? And the third one, okay, now I have data in. How do I get applications to talk to the data that I have in OSDU? And we saw those as the three major blockers, and we wanted to make sure to include them in our solution EDI. So let me go ahead and dig a little bit further into the first one around fully managed platform. When I look at when we all say get home from work and when we want to go home and just relax, watch a little bit of TV, who wants to be able to go find their favorite show or movie using a Python script? Well, that's how OSDU was. You're talking about tens of thousands of lines of code creating these standards, but it was really made for developers, and there was no user interface to be able to communicate with the platform easily. So having a managed platform, we wanted to create this user interface so that you have access to the APIs, easy available to be able to ingest, know what's next, coming in the form, various things all on one single pane of glass. It's kind of like I would say having that Fire Stick capability of being able to access what you want to watch during the show, also for it to be completely supported. So a lot of times when individuals hear fully managed, they think about resources required to do X, Y, and Z things. That is not the managed services that we're talking about. We're talking about having an automated platform for OSDU on a single pane of glass. And Yuri is going to actually give a demonstration of that, because that has also been, I would say, another blocker is that everyone's seen presentations and talked about OSDU, but have they ever seen it in action? And that's the goal, is to be able to have something that is production ready so that you can see it in action today. Next slide. Perfect. So now that I have, I would say, my Fire Stick, and I have all my access to what shows I like and all those things, how do I get movies loaded in? How do I get the data inside of the platform itself? The OSDU comes with an airflow ingestion that is very effective, but what happens, it is very, I would say, complex and very manual. And it would take time for it to scale. When we talk about companies with petabytes of data, it would take years for that to happen. So what we've done is created a tool called EDI IQ that implements large language models and machine learning so that you can auto map the OSDU data types to your actual data itself. This allows for fast ingestion that takes that years of getting petabytes of data into the platform and gets it done in weeks. It improves your accuracy by 80%. And just in a data point of the actual Volve and public data sets, we've seen it to be 90% faster as a baseline compared to Airflow. And this is something that we feel is very important, that allow customers, as we mentioned before, uh, to adopt OSDU and not have this become a barrier into the actual platform itself. All right, so now that I have a single pane of glass user interface, I now have data in the platform. The challenge, next slide, Yuri, becomes your actual applications. How I have data, but my applications are not OSDU compatible. They're still in a transition, so I'm gonna have to wait in order to do my workflows. Well, no, that's not the case. You know, you we have created EDI Transformer, and what this does, it allows for applications that are unaware of OSDU to be able to have connection to OSDU data formats through the transformer. This kind of goes to, using the same analogy is, hey, I'm watching my movie, but this movie is only on Hulu. This movie is only on Netflix. This movie is only on Amazon Prime. I don't want to pay three different subscriptions in order to be able to enjoy the shows that I like. The transformer allows all of and true interoperability and all this data to be synchronized on one platform itself. And that is what I consider to be a game changer, not only for operators that would like to implement OSDU, but it also is for independent software vendors that do not have the resources or current time in order to allow their applications to become OSDU compatible. This accelerates them to be able to market and go to market to customers saying, using AWS's EDI transformer, our applications can be OSDU compatible. Next slide. So we looking at this just to simplify it. If you take what's in the middle here of having your dedicated Amazon account, the portal that Yuri is going to show you that gives you that single pane of glass, underlining OSDU, APIs with test data inside, and where you will ingest your data as well. You then have fully supported someone to call if there's an issue. All of this is enclosed inside of EDI. But as I mentioned earlier as well, the form, OSDU form, is continuously improving, creating, developing new standards as we continue to evolve. And as that happened, they release new releases and versions of OSDU. EDI takes all of those things in consideration and implements this inside of your platform so that it takes away that complete burden being fully managed. So when you leave the office on Friday and you have version 2 milestone 20, and you come back to work on Monday, you have now version 22, uh, or milestone 22, and it was no loss of data, no loss of connections between your applications because all of that is managed and automated inside of the platform. That ultimately is the simplification of what EDI does for a very complex platform. So that the things on the right, our customers are able to focus on their applications, their workflows, and ultimately the value they're creating for their organization. And that's the simplified, I would say, high level overview of what EDI and its tools are doing for the industry. Next slide. So when we talk about tenancy, because a lot of times when individuals first kind of understand or hear about OSDU, they kind of think about, hey, I don't want to have my data shared with everyone. That's not the purpose. That's not the goal of OSDU. So we have a dedicated instance where a customer will have access to their data on their platform services, uh, and it can be partitioned as needed and controlled by that account owner. But we also provide a multi-tenant solution. And what this does, it allows for users to have a shared platform services, not shared data, but shared platform services. And this is awesome for uh, DevOps, where it actually allows you to reduce your costs because you're sharing these platform services, but it also has the security partitions of storage that allows you to manage who has access to what. So the ability to have a dedicated instance and also multi-tenant gives not only solutions for enterprise customers, but also customers that would like to use EDI in different, I would say, value propositions. Another thing that individuals, I would say, sometimes confuse is around SaaS and PaaS offerings. Well, to simplify it, the SaaS offering of our EDI is we provide a AWS account for a customer and deploy OSDU into that account where we would host it and then share access and control with the customer. From a pass offering perspective, the actual end customer would provide their AWS account and we would deploy EDI into that account in their VPC. And that's really kind of a simplistic way of looking at SaaS versus PaaS. I think I have one more slide that I want to share. And one of the things, and we're covering a lot of things at a high level, and we can dive deep onto many of these areas because there are very uh, complex things that are being solved through EDI. But when we look at a couple additional differentiators on EDI, first, AWS has invested in hardware. The Nitro chips continues to give confidence to customers as it continuously evaluate firmware to make sure that you're very confident when it comes to security. EDI implements and utilizes these Nitro chips. Also, all your data that's stored in your S3 bucket have S3 intelligent tiering. So as you ingest petabytes of data that may not only be accessed very rarely, and you would like to manage your cost effectively and put it in Glacier storage from a cost perspective, you have that capability inside of EDI itself. And lastly, AWS have very deep experience and knowledge around OSDU and also around the industry itself. And we see this as significant differentiators as you take on that journey of OSDU.
All right, so thank you, Sastin. I'm gonna take over from this slide and kind of cover additional features of energy data insights. The other thing that we heard from our customers that is using OSDU APIs is not really straightforward if you're a beginner or even if you work with OSDU before, but there's just like so many of them that it could be hard to get started and continue. So as part of the Energy Data Insights, we have announced Energy Data Insights Workbench for the EDI data platform. And essentially, it's a collection of the software development kit and a cloud development kit to help you streamline the consumption of the OSDU APIs using the EDI platform. It's designed to be served for the different personas from developer to data science, system administrator, and business analyst. But it's basically similar to the other SDK or CDK. It's a collection of kind of libraries which you can install and you can quickly use the methods of those libraries to connect to OSDU at the platform, to query it, and so on and so forth. This is in contrast of using the regular Postman collection calls that you have to chain together, or you need to know what parameters to pass in every uh, kind of on all of those APIs that you need to chain. This simplifies the ability to use those SDK and CDKs to quickly query your OSU data platform. The other part I wanted to highlight before we jump into the live demo is our broad integration of OSDU data platform with our AWS partner network. We've done more than 40 plus projects to integrate applications into OSDU data platform on AWS. Some of the names listed here, and there's much more into that. So I just wanted to thank everybody who is on the call today and who worked with us in the past to showcase how OSDU data platform can be used on AWS with real-world geoscience workflows end to end. All right, so Sastin gave us a great overview of what Energy Data Insights is, how it connects to OSDU, what features we have announced, and what capabilities are there. Now I'm going to switch screens and start sharing the actual demo of the live Energy Data Insights on AWS. And while I'm going to go ahead and share, I'm going to just say that I'm going to demo a couple of things. One is I'm going to show the Energy Data Insights on AWS Management Console or Administrative UI or a console portal, or basically, and it has different names. But the whole point is, once you subscribe to the Energy Data Insights on AWS, you have the ability to have a graphical user interface, which I'm showing on the screen here. And hopefully visible. If not, please ping me over Chime, which showcases the portal to interact with the platform. So I know if you've been an OSDU forum participant for a while, probably the most interaction you have with OSDU data platform is either through the Postman scripts, the Word documents through the testing staging collections, or you build something else. If you subscribe to Energy Data Insights on AWS, you have the ability to use this simple user interface straight from the box. So let's go ahead and dive in some of the features here. So Energy Data Insights on AWS console is intended to help you manage your OSDU data platform. One of the first things, and this is one of my favorites, is the ability to turn the platform on and off. So you can go ahead and schedule the platform to be only active during the certain periods of time, or to be off during weekends, during the time your team may be not working on it. And this allows you to save cost and also kind of help you optimize the utilization of your resources. But that's not all. It keeps track if all of your services in the current OSDU release is actually running and they're working, and you have the ability to turn the services on and off individually if you choose to do so. It also gives us the ability to manage the users and groups for the OSDU data platform. And if you're using OSDU in AWS, the authentication comes through the AWS Cognito. So if previously you might have used Postman to do those API calls and create the users, here you can just use the API and add a new user and configure the configuration for that particular person. If I go back to the home screen of the Energy Data Insights on AWS, I'm going to walk you through kind of Not diving too deep in each one, but want to touch base which each of those tabs does. So a couple of those tabs are informational. So if you're new to OSDU, this screen will give you an overview of what this data platform is. It actually maintains the links to the OSDU data forum and helps you kind of navigate through those links and find you the information faster. If you're new or you might not work with OSDU data forum on a day-to-day basis, some of those links are hard to find. So we actually maintain this for you. So we maintain the links of OSDU data services, and there's links to the documentation of what those services are. And in addition, we actually maintain your service endpoints. So this tab will actually show you the endpoints which you can interact with. If you're a developer or you have your own Python scripts or anything like that, how you can use those services for this particular instance. And there's much more to that than that. There's a sample application, data console, the description of the test data sets, and so on and so forth. For the test data sets, you have the ability, if you subscribe to Energy Data Insights, to pick this instance to be preloaded with TNO and Volvo data sets. Kind of standard data sets using the OSDU Open Group Forum, but this can be preloaded right when you stand up your Energy Data Insights instance on AWS. Now let's go ahead and jump into the application and how you can interact with this platform. The first part is the data console. So again, this is a graphical user interface using the abilities and APIs of OSDU through the graphical user interface to quickly search, load data, and interact with your OSDU data platform. Here I'm showing how you can query the existing data within the OSDU. And this is essentially kind of follows the similar OSDU syntax, but it's simplified a little bit. One, you can see it in the graphical user interface. You can use Query Composer. Basically, go ahead and pick the fields and the values, just like you would do like if you were querying a SQL database, but it go ahead and translates those into the OSDU API queries. And this allows you to go ahead and experiment with OSDU data, kind of understand what it is, look at the schemas which are there, understand them better. If you're a developer, it will help your developers to get onboarded to the data platform faster. You also have the ability to load data into the data platform. The load data will use the standard OSDU APIs. I know Sastin talked about using the smart ingestion tools, and I will demo this later. But from the EDI portal, you have the ability to go ahead. If you have already your JSON file, you understand the JSON schemas, you can quickly load and ingest the data using this interface. And you have this ability to do the same things for the reference data, for the manifest, for the file collections, and so on. Another advantage of using the interface is that you can actually go ahead and manage your schemas of OSDU. So again, EDI comes with the OSDU data platform installation on AWS underneath. But this interface allows you to quickly explore what the schemas are. And not only that, so if you're familiar and you say, okay, so I know something in OSDU data platform is still under the works, but I want to go ahead and create my own schema. You have the ability to do that using this interface. You can specify all the parameters, you can parse your JSON file, you can understand what the method underneath is called, and you can go ahead and create this schema. So previously, when you had to do with a postman and you would sometimes get the complicated errors or maybe not straightforward errors, this interface will help you to accelerate the journey, whether creating, managing the custom schemas, understanding what schemas are in the OSDU data platform. Now let me go back to the main screen. So another part this interface does is it allows you to explore how can you actually use the data from OSDU data platform. And for this, we have created several applications. One sample application is just, let's visualize the wellbore trajectories and well paths in 3D viewers. So what it does is basically gives you understanding of, okay, so I installed my OSDU data platform or Energy Data Insights. I ingested my data into it. Well, what's next? And the next is kind of showing you how to leverage this data. So in this case, I'm just showing a quick 3D viewer. I'm not saying that this is something you would use, for example, in production, but it's something as a QA/QC tool to help you see and visualize that the data that got ingested into Energy Data Insights, it's valid, it got registered correctly, it's cataloged, and now you can. This is how you can retrieve and consume it. And similarly, you can use the map viewer to do similar things. So in this case, I'm showing the well viewer for maps and just gonna go ahead and explore my wells. Just as I said before, I have TNO and Wolf data sets registered, and I think maybe I even have some growing data in there. And the map viewer will display your well locations. It allows you to kind of understand how this works. Not diving into much in the developer side, but you can open your developer tools in Chrome or any other web browser and see what APIs are getting called. And kind of this also helps you to accelerate your developer journey and your application integration, if you will. The other tabs which I not covered, meeting your future needs and production operations, will give you some insights on what the data platform is on AWS, how you can potentially scale it, and give you some additional documentations of the data platform itself, and also how you can use it and optimize for your needs. Basically, some tips and tricks, if you will. All right. So this is the Energy Data Insights console on AWS. So again, if you subscribe for Energy Data Insights, this will probably be some of your one of your primary screens of how to manage and administer your OSDU data platform, starting from stop and stopping services to managing users, to understanding more about your data platform, and to QA and QC your data and building your application. The other part what I wanted to cover today was to focus on the ingestion of the data into the data platform, EDI-IQ, so Energy Data Insights IQ. I'm going to go ahead and open this service. So it's a service which comes with Energy Data Insights on AWS. Um, you can go ahead and sign up for the service if you don't want to. It's optional, but it's highly recommended because as Sustin has highlighted, it significantly speeds up and simplifies the ingestion of data to your OSDU instance. So this is the main screen of the Energy Data Insights IQ on AWS. There's a lot to unpack here. I'm going to quickly walk you through some of the main steps on how the data is ingested in OSDU on AWS using EDI-IQ. It starts with a data source analysis. So like for any data ingestion, you will have to pick your source data and where the data resides. In this case, we have mapped for the demo the S3 bucket, so object storage on AWS, and the Wolf dataset. And we put all of the data set that you find on the open source repository and uploaded to S3 bucket and connected our EDI-IQ instance into it. Then we use the data ingestion pipelines. So when Sustin was talking about how to speed up the ingestion in OSDU and how to improve the accuracy. So how do we achieve that? And there's a few key points I want to highlight without diving too deep into this session. One is we actually auto-generate all the OSDU manifests on the fly by exploring and analyzing the data using the large language models and machine learning. In other words, this system understands OSDU data schema. It knows how to read your structured and unstructured data, and it knows how to make semantic predictions with the keywords and vectorizing those keywords into probabilities of what the data might look like. So in simple terms, if it reads a text file and it sees a well name, and it could be well name underscore, well name capitalized, or anything like that, it can predict that this is probably going to go to the well name of the OSDU schema. And it has a high probability it will auto-generate the manifest. And it does that for all of those data types showing on the left. So essentially, you do not have to spend days or hours generating your manifests. The system can do it for you. I'm going to go ahead and quickly demonstrate how it works using the wells. So everything here is done using the Apache Spark notebooks running on a Databricks cluster. So the ingestion itself actually does not use the standard Airflow ingestion. The one interface I showed previously in the Energy Data Insights Management Console or portal, where you could copy paste the manifest, that still works. So you can always call Airflow, you can always copy paste your manifest. That doesn't change. But with this system, you can configure your job and you can point it to those S3 bucket, which I showed previously. And you can say, you know what, I have some data there. I know that you can read this data because it's structured, unstructured data with a standard reader. So go ahead and read those data sets from the S3 bucket and go ahead and generate the manifest. So again, I'm picking some of the data from my S3 bucket, and I'm just going to go ahead and pick, let's just say F1 and F10. There's wellbore data from the Volvo data set, and I'm going to go ahead and click run. And what it will do, it will kick off the job on the Databricks cluster, which is already pre-configured for you. There is a ways to modify and configure which jobs are running with Python script and Python logic is there. It comes with some predetermined scripts, and you can modify it with administrative permissions. But what it will do once you kick off the job, it's going to reach out to that S3 bucket, read the contents, and make the predictions saying, okay, this is what I read. I think those fields that you're ingesting me belongs to the wells because it is a wells job, but those data sets are going to go into those specific fields in the manifest. And that's what it's doing right now. So this is my shared dev environment, which I share with other people. So hopefully it's going to complete in about a minute. Okay, there you go, 39 seconds. So it completes. So let's go ahead and take a look what it's generated. I'm going to sort by well name, and I'm going to find those F1 and F10 wells that I previously kicked off. All right, so those are the two things I kicked off. So what I did in the first run, and went ahead, read those data, and generated the manifest. I know it's a simple example because it's a wells data, but you can see that it read them, their source data, generate the manifest, and you can view the manifest here. If you see something wrong, you can actually go ahead and edit right there in the user interface. And what edit means, it will look, is all of the required data to ingest those manifests in OSDU data platform is present. And in case of wells, there is only a few data sets, but the system will work pretty similarly across different data types. So the next step, once you have the manifest, is go ahead and validate it. Basically saying, okay, I'm going to run another job and say, those manifests are auto-generated. Are they going to actually pass QA/QC control for ingestion on OSDU? And once I validate it, there is another job which is going to appear in this user interface and validate those manifests. And again, for the sake of time, I'm using the wells data. For the other data types like well logs, seismic, the overall steps are essentially the same. You generate the manifest, you validate it, you approve it, and you ingest it. But depending on the data type, there are some extra steps that the system will do. For example, if it's ingesting seismic and segway files, it actually will look at the byte positioning CRS reference of your segway and try to make predictions and understand what's your additional information it needs to have to understand how to ingest. So there's a lot of smarts built in there. And on the first pass, you see what it generated, and then you can either say, okay, does it validate? If it yes, there is a very good percent chance. I think Sasson mentioned more than 90% that ingestion will succeed. And if you see some errors, you have the graphical user interface capabilities to go ahead and fix anything which the system might have not predicted accurately right from the bat. All right, so for the wells data, I go ahead and validated my job. So basically I said, okay, take those couple of files from S3, generate the manifests pass the validation, meaning that the manifests are valid, all the data in those particular fields are present. And now I am going to go ahead and say, okay, so these are my two wells that I'm working with. Validation is passed. This is my source data. And I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, approve. So approval is just a timestamp. It's going to say this is the person, and in this case, this is my ID, Y Gubanov, who's approved the ingestion into the OSDU. So basically, I certify that I examined the manifest, I trust it, this is my trusted source of data. Let's go ahead and catalog it. And the last thing we're going to do is go ahead and ingest the data in OSDU. And again, on ingestion, it's going to do the similar thing. It's going to kick off a job. If you see here on the right-hand side in right bottom corner, so generation of the manifest, validation of the manifest, ingestion is the 3 steps you're going to take for pretty much all of the data types that you work with. Now, I think so the system can scan all of the data in bulk and try to make assumptions of what the data is and adjust it on the fly. All of that is configurable. The reason I'm showing it the way it is basically saying, okay, I probably know that it's wells because of an S3 bucket is because I don't want to run extra compute. If you want to throw in a whole bunch of data in S3 and just say, go ahead, analyze all of it and try to ingest, the system can do it. It's probably not the best way to do it, but just because you might be reading the same file multiple times and understanding how it works. But of course, it's possible. If you just don't know what it is, the system is more than happy to scan and make adjustment as they go. Usually, though, what we found is most of our customers have some understanding of what the data is. It's whether by file type or by file name or by folder type. And that can significantly speed up not only ingestion capabilities, but also kind of save you some cost while doing the ingestion. All right, and my ingestion should succeed in about, let's see, should be succeeding about now. So now I ingested a couple of wells into my system. Now let's go back to the Energy Data Insights main screen. So I demonstrate how to scan the data, how to do the ingestion using wells, but there is a lot more to it when it comes to Energy Data Insights IQ. You have the ability to do the metadata management. And basically what it does is shows you what's my current state of the data in OSDU data platform behind the Energy Data Insights. It will show you how many fields, how many basins, and again, shared environments already have a lot of data ingested in there. And it allows you to basically provides you a snapshot of what data you have in there, query the data using the standard OSDU APIs, but even more than that, show the data lineage. So if I show my wells and I say, okay, go ahead and find me F1 well, and I think that's the one I work with, it actually shows you the different usernames who work on this data, and it graphically shows you what data is available to you and how it's modified. And there you go, you can see the my user ID. And again, since it's shared environment, there is multiple users who work on that. And the system understands if you're trying to ingest things multiple times, then it kind of records the data sets and the operations that different users have performed. Now, I also wanted to show a few other things. So we looked at the data source analysis, ingestion pipelines, quick look at data management. There is ability to view other things, understanding more of your cost. So Databricks jobs are on demand. And again, just to iterate, so when we actually show the ingestions, that ingestion jobs are not run using Airflow. This is basically our own custom pipelines configured, and you can parallelize them, and you saw the metrics that kind of help you clarify how fast and how more accurate that is. And you have the ability to go ahead and do the visualization and analysis of your data in OSDU. Again, not necessarily like this is not intended to be interpretation or um, anything like that, but it helps you to understand that the data is ingested correctly, and also kind of give you a quick QA/QC, understand what the data is. Most of the time when the data is ingested, you can trust it, but sometimes you want to see, okay, if I'm a data manager, I want to see what the data is in there. How can I get a whole view of my data? I want to see a quick view of my faults, of my horizons, just to see how it shows up. So here on the map, you can see the same thing, which I did, like some wells and seismic, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick some faults and horizons and demonstrate you can also work with your geobodies. So the way data visualization and analysis works is by project. So I had my project open, but I'm gonna go ahead and add some data to my project. In this case, we have preloaded some faults. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some faults data to my project and go ahead and save it. And I'm going to do the same things with horizons. Again, it's all standard data, but just demonstrating the various capabilities of energy data insights on AWS. And I'm going to go ahead to do the same, save it to my project, and now it's all available. And you can do it with all of the data types you see on the left menu. So let's go ahead and view horizons. So this is my preloaded horizons, and I can choose my level of detail. And I can quickly see in this instance, what are those data sets in a 3D viewer. And there you go, it shows up. And I can choose my Z-scale and aspect ratio to give more detail to my features. So all that comes as part of the functionality of EDI-IQ. It all connects to your same data platform instance, the management console and the portal that I showed, the EDI-IQ, all in the background connect to the same instance, authentication, authorization, groups, legal tags already handled for you. And of course, if you want to change something, you're welcome to go back and use the EDI management console to change any of that and configure it as you see fit. Same thing for the faults. If I go back here, I can do the same visualization of faults. It will work pretty similarly, but just to demonstrate how you can use the same system, use graphical user interface, connect your S3 bucket or your structured and structured data stores, automatically generate the manifest, validate it, ingest it on OSDU data platform, and then use the QA/QC mechanism in the same system to understand how your data is working, that it's trusted, that it's ingested correctly, you can use it. And not only that, if you have developers, how you can accelerate your developer journey for your application integration or any of the workflows within the companies that you are from. All right, so let me go ahead and close this. Now let me go back to the energy data insights on AWS. So as part of the ADI IQ, Sastin also mentioned the energy IQ transformer. So how can you connect your application, which might not be OSDU aware, to OSDU data platform in an accelerated fashion? I'm not going to go ahead and demo the whole workflow due to the sake of time, but just walk you through that. So if you have an application which you can extract the data schema from. In most of the applications, you can. It can be a SQL or you can generate your own CSV, but basically like column name value, right? So this is my schema. You can go ahead and take this CSV and upload it into EDI-IQ transformer, which will try to automatically use the same machine learning LLM technologies to map those data sets into OSDU schema and connect those applications to OSDU, which basically simplifies you a lot of the development time, allowing you to focus on the actual business workflows instead of just the data mapping exercise. So the EDIQ transformer will map the values from your application to energy data insights and OSDU. It will use the ingestion mechanism to push the data from your application to OSDU, and it will maintain during the upgrades or anything like that how this data will be consistent through OSDU upgrades. So you can maintain your application, you can connect it to OSDU, and you can push data from your application to OSDU. And this is very useful considering that a lot of the proprietary application that we've seen from our customers is not OSDU compatible out of the box. So I know we only have about 7 minutes left. So I wanted to go ahead and switch back to the slides. But just to summarize, in this session, what we covered is we covered energy data insights on AWS management portal for OSDU data platform. We showed how we can administer the users, turn the services on and off, turn the whole data platform on and off, if you will, and how we can speed up the application integration with OSDU data platform on AWS. We also took a brief tour of Energy Data Insights IQ and AWS and how you can auto-generate manifests for your OSDU data platform ingestion using machine learning, large language models, pre-map those data fields, generate the manifest, ingest them into OSDU and AWS using our own Apache Spark notebooks and Databricks workflows to parallelize and do the ingestion at scale. So previously, if you had to ingest everything manually, and we don't have the exact data how long it would take to ingest both data set, for example, manually into OSDU, But in this case, it took us about 4 to 5 hours to scan everything from Wolf dataset and ingest it on OSDU using EDI-IQ. And what's the best part? We didn't even have to sit down and generate every single manifest by hand or using Python scripts or troubleshooting a lot of things. We were able to use IML to do all of it for us. And then just click the button, make sure there's no errors, validate it, and ingest. With that, I'm going to go ahead and switch for the slides. And we do have some time for Q&A at the end. And I see there's some question in the chat, but let me go ahead and switch to the slides really quick. Okay, so before I turn to Q&A, I really wanted to spend a few minutes and talk about the future release, milestone 22. So milestone 22 is already out, and it is coming to the Energy Data Insights on AWS, and we're expecting it to be in March. And there's a few things which is going to be available to you. Rock and fluid samples DDMS, geospatial consumption zone, seismic DDMS dataset v4, operational improvements for the support, some integration between the notification services, and also, like Sastin mentioned, out-of-the-box integration with Amazon S3 Intelligent Tiering. If you're not familiar with Amazon S3 Intelligent Tiering, in a very brief sentence, it's the ability for you to save cost on the data that you might not use as frequently. So OSDU on AWS will use Amazon S3, and you're able to use the objects and move them to a lower cost storage tier if they're not used on a frequent basis, or it can bring it back up to your hot tier if they are starting to be used. So again, kind of it's all done automatically for you under the hood, and OSDU and AWS and Energy Data Insights will support that. All right. So before we jump to Q&A, wanted to give you a quick overview what's coming next. Again, thank you everybody for attending the session. I really appreciate your time. We are doing this on a quarterly basis in 2024 and hopefully beyond, depending on the attendance and the feedback from you all as our customers and partners. We're planning to do another session in May. Q3 is going to be in August and Q4 is going to be in November. I would really appreciate if you take a note of this email address over there, osdu-on-aws@amazon.com. And if you send us some feedback, what do you want to see in the future sessions? We are trying to organize this post-webinar survey and send it as a more formal engagement as well. But while this is matures, please feel free to kind of give us some feedback. We are hoping to organize the sessions by developer enablement, new workflows, or just let us know what you want to see next. I would love to showcase all of our partner network opportunities and taking nominations for that. So if you have a workflow that you used and you want to showcase on how to use EDI on AWS for the OSDU data platform, let me know. We already have a set of demos lined up and we're always looking for more. If you want to learn more, aws.amazon.com/OSDU will give you the description of Energy Data Insights on AWS, its architecture, and a lot more information that we've covered today. And with that, I wanted to thank everyone for attending today. I will be more than happy to open it up for questions. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and we can jump into questions. Again, thank you everyone for attending.